This morning, the Russians launched an attack using Iranian drones. More than a dozen drones flew towards Kiev. Two administrative buildings were damaged in one of the capital's central districts. Local authorities are working to determine the number of victims of the attack. The terrorists began this morning by launching more than a dozen combat drones. According to preliminary information, as many as 13 were shot down by Ukrainian air defense. Dear citizens, be vigilant and listen to the announcements. The Russians deliberately shelled Kiev before sunrise to make the trajectory of the drones more difficult to determine. As of yet, there is no information on whether the destruction will affect energy supplies in the Kiev region. Sirens wailed about 20 to 30 minutes before the first explosion. With each explosion, it became clear outside the window. I think Vladimir Putin will not succeed. Given the losses of Russians and the consequences of this war, we expect Russia to step down soon. I think Putin wants to stifle us psychologically, but he will not succeed. It's been 8 months. We can't give up now. Since the beginning of the invasion, the Russians have recruited 23,000 prisoners into the army. The convicts are being sent to the front line. The Kremlin is trying to avoid social tensions this way, since the deaths of criminals do not provoke such strong opposition from citizens as the deaths of professional soldiers. This is a matter of quietly putting the Russian army's losses to sleep, as I don't think anyone expected the Russians to suffer such heavy personnel losses. We are now talking about the issue of almost 100,000 Russian soldiers killed, so certainly the replenishment of the army's capacity through prisoner recruitment, which we have seen since the beginning of the war, is such an element of quiet mobilization. Meanwhile, yesterday, Ukraine's Western allies pledged €1 billion in emergency financial aid to Kiev. This time, more than 70 countries and institutions around the world have expressed their willingness to support. Yesterday's meeting of donors was held in Paris. These funds will be used for, among other things, current energy needs, humanitarian purposes, and transportation improvements. It is worth mentioning that at this point, almost half of this budget has not yet been distributed. Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki has traveled to Brussels, where today he will attend a European Union summit with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Tomorrow, he will attend a formal meeting of the European Council. The session will be dominated by the topic of Russian aggression against Ukraine and the current situation in the energy market. All Polish families are suffering from the Putinflation as a result of the war going on in Ukraine and high prices of energy sources. The German chancellor stressed that sanctions against Russia and aid to Kiev will be maintained until the Kremlin withdraws troops from Ukraine.